You need to be ready for the life that you actually want. Guys, this is honestly a harsh lesson that I realized when I first tried to step into a digital nomad journey by venturing off to Southeast Asia after my van blew up. I was living in my van in Australia and the whole damn car blew up. I lost my home, I lost my vehicle, my plans got completely disrupted, and I had to pivot. Now, in the long run, it wasn't a bad thing because it redirected me. And I had to take that journey in Southeast Asia for a few months to really figure out what exactly I want and also how am I going to get there. Now, what I learned from, being in Southeast Asia is that sometimes things happen to you where you're not supposed to, like, what's going to happen is not what you think will happen. Like, I was there and I had no money coming in remotely, and I still had savings, obviously, but I'm like, okay, this big dramatic event occurred. This is the time for me to go full on and try to figure out and scramble ways to make income online. And I made a little bit, very tiny, but it wasn't enough to sustain that lifestyle of constant nomading and also to, fully cover my bills and expenses and have peace of mind while I pursue my projects. But what I did learn is that sometimes things occur in your life for you to really see where you want to go and to simply just observe. And it's going to take you back a step because now you have the knowledge on what it takes to actually get there. And I call it being prepared for your dream. Now, that's often not something that, it's not something that's often even discussed in the first place. We see this goal, we feel like we have to just work towards it and that's it. And then when it comes, boom, that's it. Well, it's actually much more complicated than that because mentally you have to be prepared. Spiritually, you have to be prepared. And you have to be in a position where you can receive such things in a lucid state of being so that you don't lose it and so that you don't sabotage, so that you don't self-sabotage. And what I mean by that is, when you're on your journey, when you're, improving things, when you're making things happen, things might actually change, like they probably will change if you work hard enough. And you may get to a point where you just self-sabotage. You just throw it all away because you simply weren't ready. Those limiting beliefs were still, in your brain at the time, or they were still quite prominent. That's just one example. But my point being is that sometimes things happen in your life and it's just meant to show you. It's meant to direct you on the next step. And that can mean maybe going back a step, and you're not losing progress. You're just redirecting your focus and your energy, and you're doing it in a way, where you have more discernment, you have more intelligence, you have more rationality to you. So a lot of times, these things that you want, you have to be aware that I made a video on this, but it's like everything has to change. Everything has to change in order for you to embrace a new identity. So, for example, when I was on my nomading journey, I was stressing out about money. Even though I had savings, I was stressing about, when can I get this income? I'm running out. And I mean, at the end of the day, I was fine because I'm back and, I'm back to square one, and I'm saving, and, I'm doing it with a better head on my shoulders. But my point being is, when I was facing this stress, I would resort to negative habits that were my old self. I went back to my old self oftentimes, and it was over and over again. It's like I was being shown this demon that I have to conquer. And I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but it's a vice. It's my vices in the past. It's ways that I think about myself and what I want. And I realized that this trip, this short journey of me jumping into the abyss, it wasn't about trying to make things work so I can get to the next step. It was figuring out what's holding me back. It was figuring out what I need to do. It was figuring out what type of vision that I have needs to clear up a little bit in order for me to get to the next level. And My point, guys, is that that's probably the case for you. That's probably the case for you. It's like you have to be prepared for your life to get to the next level. It's like if you have terrible budgeting skills with money, I mean, yeah, you might be able to make $1 million in a couple years, not maybe not a couple years, but like a few years if you had a business idea and it suddenly blew up, or maybe you started day trading and then boom. But you're probably going to lose it. And you would have wished that you would have been prepared for it. And you may not know the concise answer on how to prepare for that, but sometimes life will just show you. And you have to be slightly vigilant enough to catch that. You have to be, you have to observe. You have to really watch out for that stuff, because it's going to teach you a lot of perspectives that you never would have even conceived had you not failed, had you not learned the harsh lessons that you needed to learn. And so my point is, don't underestimate preparation, because that's often what is going to that's the portal. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, the best example I can give is Mike Tyson. When you look at his history a little bit, I mean, he was a kid who grew up really impoverished. He had nothing going on for him. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was adopted by a prolific boxing trainer slash hypnotist slash psychologist who completely took this guy under his wing, literally crafted him into one of the greatest fighters of all time. And he generated probably almost $1 billion US dollars in value today. And look, he went into debt. 60 million. He lost everything. And part of it is not maybe like, obviously there was other issues, but he just simply wasn't prepared in all aspects. And that was the lesson that he had to learn. That was the lesson that life taught him. That was his journey to embark on it. But my point being is that you can be in a position, and it's better to be in a position where it might be ordained for you to prepare more so you can actually wield the benefits of the dream life that you ponder of. And that's crucial. I mean, that's like almost an ingredient to the most important recipe that you can ever cook. It's based off knowing that you now have your formula to follow and a blueprint that has been literally been crafted to you by life. But you cannot see that blueprint unless you take a risk, until you take a leap of faith, until you fail, until you make yourself vulnerable. And that's honestly what I learned in my nomading journey. And it's profoundly impacted me in a very raw and unfiltered way. But it's been very positive, because it's taught me a lot about myself and what I need to work on. And you'll never reach that point if you continue to think that all you need to do is this and that. It's like life is simple. However, it's also a little bit more complicated, because we have brains, and our brains are complex, and oftentimes energetically we will not be able to connect with certain things that we want, or certain outcomes may occur because our brains are wired this way. If you're always used to getting treated terribly by your partner in relationships, because maybe your parents were abusive as a kid, or you saw the way that they interacted with each other and it wasn't very healthy, then your brain is wired that way, and it's constantly going to seek those experiences even from other partners. So until you reprogram that aspect, until you have a paradigm shift, you'll never be able to move forward and progress to the outcomes that you want to receive. It's just like, it sounds so simple, but it's very difficult, because like I said, these things require discomfort. It's not that it's challenging by, like a labor job where you're just concreting in 50 degrees Celsius weather. I mean, it's not like that in many places in the world, but you understand my point. It's just that you have to be aware that Oftentimes, the things that you want, like you need to become a certain type of person. And even if you became that person in some aspects, you know, you will never be able to reach that final destination if you're not fully prepared. The things that often happen in life, I know life is, things that happen can be arbitrary, and maybe you don't think so because you might have beliefs that God planned this for you. But my point being is that I think everything in life happens for a reason. I think everything teaches you a lesson, whether you win, whether you lose, whether you do great, whether you don't. It's all a lesson. And if you want to reach that level of contentment and enlightenment within your life, and enlightenment doesn't just mean, internal, but also external, then you also have to be at a certain level yourself. You have to be at a certain way of thinking. You have to be a certain type of person. And you'll never know if you're not prepared for it. So that's just what I wanted to share with you guys, okay? So don't underestimate that ingredient because it's crucial. It's crucial to your success and to live the most enriching life that you can.